Hey, Caroline, you are on mute.
We're all on mute. You're on mute as well.
There you go. As a moderator, you always take yourself off mute first. So thank you, sir. Good morning. Thank you to all of you for joining us this morning for our May NTSA Central Florida Tech Grove Connect webinar. In this series of webinars, our partnership with NTSA, we highlight the best papers and tutorials from the most recent ITSIC event. My name is Caroline Logue. I am the co-founder and director of the Central Florida Tech Grove, and I want to take just a few minutes and talk about Tech Grove for those of you that are not familiar with us. We are a Department of Defense funded innovation center anchored in Orlando, Florida, which is the home of Team Orlando, a long-standing, very unique collaborative of the four main services that are all working in human performance through simulation and training for our military. Central Florida Tech Grove, as you see, we are focused on human performance, and very unusual for a DoD-funded innovation center. We have, as you see those logos along the bottom, a multitude of customers. The University of Central Florida Research Foundation is the nonprofit side that runs Tech Grove. And then our customers are the Navy, three entities that are part of the Army, the Air Force, Marine Corps, and Space Force, and the Naval X Central Florida Tech Bridge. This is where we focus: human performance, obviously cybersecurity, and everything that underpins this enormous world of military readiness through simulation and training. We have a lot of ways for you to engage with us and help you, and to accomplish our mission of bringing more innovators into the defense industry base, of supporting the transfer and transition of innovation that is developed by companies, academia, such as our team today, into use in the military and the commercial sector, and also solving problems for our government customers that you saw listed on the previous slide. So you see there our regular series of events, you see our website, our email address, and I hope that you will go to our website. I'll put that in the chat, and that you'll just fill out that little connect form to become part of our community. This is just a few of the events we have coming up. Obviously, this event today. We have our Grafting at the Grove event on Thursday, tonight, actually, for those of you that are in the Orlando area. Our monthly juice bar, which we will be broadcasting live from Naval Surface Warfare Center in Crane, Indiana, showcasing the enormous array of research and development and opportunities to collaborate with them. And then we do have a prize challenge out there on the streets for any of you that are working in areas of live virtual constructive or multimodal training. But with that, let's get to the real purpose of the show today, which is showcasing the paper Serious Games for Serious Stroke Rehabilitation. And we have with us today the two innovators that were the lead on this wonderful work, Edgar Luminar and Alcimar Soares, who are both faculty members from a university in Brazil. I am going to let them each tell you a little bit about their impressive background, and then we're going to have a little conversation and go on into their presentation. So, Edgar?
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation, the name of our university in our labs. I would like to thank for the opportunity to stay here and share some thoughts about the kind of work we are doing here. I hold a PhD in computer engineering from Leeds University in England. And since then, I've been working with applications of virtual and augmented reality in different subjects of the science, like engineering and rehabilitation, motor rehabilitation, human rehabilitation. So this work is something related to that. How can we use and explore the techniques of augmented virtual reality to help people, in this case, who suffer a stroke and needs to get a better rehabilitation? Thank you.
Dr. Suarez, would you introduce yourself, please?
Thanks, Carol. Thank you so much for this kind invitation and your kind introduction as well. I am a professor in biomedical engineering here in my university. And we are basically, over the years, we are dedicated to developing solutions for those who suffer some sort of disabilities that refrain them from proper walking, from standard daily activity, and so on. We normally deal with subjects that suffered stroke, amputees, children with specific diseases or specific psychological problems such as ADHD, cerebral palsy, and things like that. Basically, in my lab, we are dedicated to design solutions to assist people and help them to have a better life and reintroduce them into society. We have been working on this for the past 30 years over here in Brazil with partnership throughout the world to different places, different countries, some partnership in the US, Europe, Singapore, China, Middle East, and so on. And it's a pleasure being here today.
Thank you, sir. So tell us a little bit about what inspired you or what circumstances motivated you to focus on stroke rehabilitation and exploring a new form of game design for that.
In a way, when we started, basically we were it's tough to talk about that because we have relatives who suffered strokes and we always wanted to help them and so on. But the actual research we are doing now, some of the patients, they actually came to our lab to say, okay, is there anything we can do? If I can point out the very first patient we have, we started with this lady because her husband came to the lab and say, yeah, I know that you guys are developing technology to assist people with disabilities. My wife just suffered a stroke and she cannot walk properly. Is there anything we can do? Is there anything you can do? And that happened some 25 years ago. And then since then, it became a passion, to assist and to try and develop solutions. And in the beginning, we were focused on designing equipment, instruments, various instruments, and also some ortheses in order to help them to feed them food, calm themselves, and stuff like that. But as time went by, we thought about adding something more that transform the whole rehabilitation program that we were developing at the time into something more engaging. And that's where Edgar came. We wanted to add something to make the rehabilitation process a little bit more engaging. If I can put in a way, less boring for the subject, and adding this kind of serious games added a lot to our research and to the outcome of our research.
How was your work funded? That's always a question for researchers, obviously, is having money to fund your work, and particularly on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, we have some national agencies which can help us with our research projects. So the sometimes there is some call for participation, and then as a university, as our lab, we prepare a project, and then we send our project explaining what is the problem, how we want to solve the problem, and then if you convince those guys, these national funding agencies, they help us with some money to pay for equipments and to pay also scholarship for our students. And from up to now, that's the way we're getting the money to do the research.
Okay. And did you have pretty immediate support from the healthcare community to engage with you, that the customer engagement as well?
Well, at the moment, not really. Essentially, it's more from the federal
Okay.
universities or federal public of the government helping us. We have been presenting this work for some other conference and newspaper and the journals, and we also had
Mhm.
some kind of presentation on TV, local TVs. That's all.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen. And let's move on into, I know you have a few slides to show as those
Yes,
to
yes.
really help us understand the impact of what you've done. So I know, feel free to share those and tell us that part of the story.
Okay. So can I share my screen here? Or
Yes, sir. You should be able
okay,
to.
just ajuda aqui, janela. Just a moment, please.
Yep.
Yes, né? Deixa eu tirar aqui. Qual que é? Compartilhar. Esse? Sure. Okay. Can you see?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
There we
So
go. Yes, sir.
the idea, okay. So the idea we are trying to get here, I think one of a very important words in this work is this one, compensatory. Why we are concerned about this? Usually when you have a health subject, to do a movement like this, which is just to rise a cup, is quite easy. Just use all the muscles in the arm in a very, very natural way. But when you go for someone who has just suffered a stroke, that's very difficult for them. They cannot do it naturally. What they essentially do is trying to use all the parts of the body to help them to do something quite simple as raising a cup. As you can see on the right hand side, to raise a cup, somebody who suffered a stroke sometimes use a kind of shoulder movement to help him. Sometimes they use the healthy arm to help them, and sometimes they just give up and don't use the arm which has the problem. So for you to have an idea, this is a traditional therapy session, right? So you can see the patient there is trying to do a simple movement, but you can see she's moving not only the arm, she's exploring the trunk, she's exploring the elbow. So she can do the movement. It's not so easy for her as in the second case as well. So the second subject is trying to do a movement as well, but as you can see, is using the shoulder as well. The movement does not come naturally, and it's quite difficult to them to get in a way or in an easy way to learn how to do it. And another thing I'd like to point out is, as you can see, there is nothing around. Nothing around seems to be very boring. It has to be very to be very focused is quite difficult. And as you can see in both cases, these two ladies, they try to use other parts of the body to do simple tasks. And if they keep doing so, they are not going to recover the natural movement. So what we are trying to help the physiotherapists here is to provide a system where the user is going to use a platform to control an ego in an environment so where the eagle can fly, can catch fishes, can run from predators, and all the movements of the eagle is controlled by the patient who is getting recovered. Okay, so in doing that, this platform here can capture the intention of the movement. The movement was supposed to be done when he controls the ego in the virtual environment, and is everything is going out or wrong with respect to the movement, the system somehow tell the patient or the subject, look, you are not going in the right way. Please try to focus and try to correct your movement. The idea of the game is in three different levels because it really depends on the situation each patient has. And some patients, they get improved in the process of recovery. And so we have different levels for different situation for each patient. So the very first one is quite easy one, which is to take the ego through these arcs. So the essential of this task is just to make sure you pass the ego through each arc and try to be inside the arc.
Read.
And another one, we have more difficult tasks. We're going to improve the difficulty of each task. And this one is supposed to catch some fish. And it's important to say that depends on the movement or depends on the task, the movement is different. I would like to add that these movements, we capture the movements, we do it with some physiotherapists. They tell us which is the protocol that we need to transfer to the computer. So through this protocol, we guarantee we're doing a very good process of rehabilitation. And the third level has to hunt some for some meats and run from some predators, which make the level a little bit different. Another thing we provide in here is a way for the therapist to do something customized for the subject. We prepare a control panel where the physiotherapist depends on the subject he or she is dealing with. They can configure how the serious game is going to behave in order to help each specific needs of a recover from the stroke or recover of the arm or the movement of the arm. And the way we detect the movements of the patient is through this kind of trackers. We have trackers installed in the body of the patient. Each tracker is responsible for each part of muscle or movement that the physiotherapist told us according to his or her protocol. And through these trackers, we can identify the movement inside a threshold which, according to the physiotherapist, this threshold should be the ideal one. So if the patient gets outside this threshold, the symptoms detect that and ask them to try to fix them. So here we can have an idea with one subject using a system. It is a previous approach we have in our lab. So the platform is there. The, the patient is doing the movement. You can see he using her trunk to do. The interface on the computer is a very, very simple one, which is just to take one point to another one. No much fun over there. And we identify that this approach should be improved. So that's why we provide this one. See, the patient on the left-hand side get the trackers, and we can detect the movements. And the system is telling the subject, as you can see on the right side in the bottom, either if he or she is compensating or not compensating. But when the subject is compensating, the system tells him, look, you are trying to use other parts of your body, and this is not good for your recovery. Please try not to do that. So, in our approach, as you can see on the right hand side, there is this yellow dotted line, which is the threshold. So for the physiotherapists, if the user is above this threshold, this yellow line, if he's here, it's okay for them. Say, oh, he's doing a very good recovery. He's doing well. But we can identify if he's doing some kind of compensatory movement, like in here. The user now is using the trunk to get the movement done. The system can identify the points where he or she is using the trunk and tell him, look, you are uh, compensating, you are using other part, try not to do that. So your system can identify that. Okay? So and when the protocol is going on, the system will try during the session to help the patient to correct his posture and to correct his movement. So according to the physiotherapist who is working with us, this is very important. So the time for recovery tends to be smaller when during the session, we get this kind of identification of the compensation. So this is another compensation for the arm. Now you can see here on the right side, the user is doing quite well, not using the arm, but here you can see she's raising the elbow to achieve the movement. The system can identify that and can tell the patient, please not do it. You are compensated. Okay. So now you can see that second late using our system. You have the trackers there, you have the platform there. And as you can see, when you compare for the first video, the way she's behaving is much better than the very first one. As you can see, she's not, essentially, she's not compensating anymore. But if she compensates, the system is going to tell her. Another thing I'd like to point out, as you can see, besides this patient, there is a health professional. This lady is one of the physiotherapists who works in our lab. So she's there trying to help and to monitor all the protocol session. Okay. So essentially, what we could identify up to now, this integrated system with the identification of compensatory movement it has a great potential for the stroke rehabilitation process. We are talking to these physiotherapists, people from health, and they say, you have a great potential here. And with this control panel, it's important as well because we can give them some details, some data where they can work on and get better and better rehabilitation sessions. Okay. And we can monitor the clinical evolution through that control panel because we have a kind of register, all the sessions of the therapies, and we can also record the line of the ego for each session, and the physiotherapist can see the improvement when he compare the, the line of each movement of the ego, okay? Uh, and with this repetition of these movements for rehabilitation, recovery of movements is very, very important. So with this kind of feedback when doing the movement and avoid to do wrongly anytime can really rise up the process of recuperation. Okay. So what we are understanding now is that sensory feedback, compensatory identification, and helping physiotherapists and patients identify the compensation going to be very, very useful for the future of stroke recovery sessions. Okay. So just to finish, we are taking all this technology and also helping people which are amputees, people who has lost their arms. We believe that this technology using virtual reality or augmented reality can also train other areas of health. We can have some games as well where the patient can use virtual or augmented reality to learn how to control a future prosthesis. As you can see, we have on the left-hand side applications in virtual reality and application in augmented reality as well. So we understand this technology can help in different kinds of health and recovery uh, of problems with amputees and also stroke patients. Okay, so I will leave for questions. And this, as you can see, we have a great teams, a multidisciplinary teams. You have engineers there, you have computer scientists, you have physiotherapists. So we have it has to be like that, a great team to provide this potential and this tool that we believe can be very helpful in the future. Thank you.
I want to play that game. That looks like a lot of fun. So, one of the questions that was submitted ahead of time, which you alluded to actually, was do you have actual data comparison with traditional therapy and the length of time and the ability to regain proper movement with traditional versus this approach? And if so,
Yes.
what is that data? What's the reduction of the time or the perhaps extent of regaining proper movement as opposed to physical therapy?
Yeah, essentially, what we can get from the professionals is at the moment, this tool is not being used to replace the traditional physiotherapy sessions. What has happened, as you can see, that physiotherapist, she starts working the traditional way. In one part of the rehabilitation process, she comes with our tool to help during the process. There are some cases where the patient cannot move the arm at all. So we cannot replace everything from now on. But according to the feedback you get from them, there are some parts of the protocols of the recovery session when they bring our tool for their patients, they can identify that they are getting a better improvements in a shorter time. So this is very excited for us. And also, as I mentioned, we can record the trajectory of the eagle. And when the physiotherapists can see all the different trajectories through different recovery sessions, they can see in a graphical way the progress as well. Okay, so we understand that we also can have some more data, but at this moment we are just having this feedback, this graphical feedback, and also the report from the physiotherapist. I think also Mara wants to add something.
Yeah, if I may add, at the moment we are at the process of going into clinical trials with the system. There are two PhD students of mine. They are actually working in a hospital, and we are recruiting a large number of subjects to go online, to go into clinical trials. But we have some previous works that were developed with let's put it in a less ambitious technology, where we also added some virtual components as an auxiliary tool for the therapist. And what we noticed in the previous work, we have done those, I don't know, some 4 years ago, and a rate of improvement, let's put it a speed of recovering. It's very hard to put this to bring the subject to the actual, before the illness situation. But we normally found that we improved in roughly 30 to 35% the rate of recovery, which is pretty good for our less ambitious system. So we have great hopes that the results now will be much, much better. We actually did some pilot experiments, as you have seen, with some subjects. Mm-hmm. And they all say just what you said. Oh, this is fun. I want to play this game more. This is one of the most important, I would say this is one of the most important aspect of rehabilitation, engagement. This is what we're looking for. So just trying to just answering your question in a very short way, basically saying, yes, we have some previous data, but not with this
Mhm.
actual one. The previous data is quite encouraging,
The different.
and we hope we're going to do something better.
Sure.
Even
Yeah,
better.
no, I'm delighted to hear you're going into clinical trials. It starts to answer the question about where are you now in this work, assuming you're still working on it. We have a question that came in from Joseph. Were your patients able to see the mobility benefits of their treatment after the session with the game? So what did the subject say that you were working with? What did they express about the improvement that they saw?
And the robotic platform we designed, it was designed not as a joystick, a simple joystick. It is designed as a tool to assist the subject to actually develop that specific movement, so the platform can sense the movement intention. That's an engineering thing, but anyway, it can sense the movement intention. And if the patient is not able to actually do that movement, the platform will actually drag the patient's arm along the intended track. However, as the patient regains control and start to develop more force and arm control and all that stuff, the platform becomes less and less assisted and becomes now a resistant. So the subject will need to apply more force to gain muscle force and so on. So the normal feedback that we get after the session is, it feels like I am able to control my arm, something I was not able to do. It feels like I am regaining control. And as I said before, this is one of the most important part of any therapy. You feel like that you are improving. So, this kind of report that we're able to provide, as Edgar just explained, this is so important because after each session or after, I don't know, 1 or 2 weeks, the therapist can come up and say, look, this is where you were last week. This is where you are today. That's so important. That's engaging. This is what we are actually looking for.
Yeah.
And if I may add, another way, sorry. No, I just want to add that another way to identify the improvement for the patients is when they go from one level to another level, where the second one is more difficult than the first one. And they feel they are improving, just like you when you go for a game, you go from one level to another level, it's making you very happy and say, oh, I'm good. So it's the same thing here. So once they go from one level to another one, it's more difficult. They give us the feedback and said, I feel that I am improving. That's it.
Very important. It leads to a question that was submitted ahead of time. Is there, this is very much about motor function rehabilitation. Is there an aspect of this, though, that gets to recovery of cognitive function? Because obviously what's wired in our brain is related to how we use our muscles and our motor skills, but it's the positive feedback
absolutely.
and benefit, I would say. So address that, please.
This is a beautiful question. Thank you for that. Thank you, that person who actually brought this question up, because it's a beautiful question. And you went to the point, right to the point, Carol. Everything in our brain is actually connected somehow. Let me digress a little bit, and I'll come back and try and answer your question. We are actually now studying what's going on with the brain, within the brain, while the subject is actually performing all these rehabilitation protocols, different rehabilitation protocols. We are really keen into understanding how the brain relearns a task that it lost or forgot due to the stroke. And basically, this is related to a broad field called neuroplasticity. Let's not go into it right now, but we are trying to understand what's going on within the brain by testing EEG, comported behavioral tests, and so on. And what we find is that um, this kind of technology, this kind of platform, uh, allowing the patient to do not a simple repetitive motion, but adding tiny little difference from here to there, add a component to the training that we call a prediction error, and that component is highly correlated to relearning a original task. So this kind of technology can do that. We can add tiny little differences. We can change a little bit what the ego will do. We can add surprise to all that. And in so doing, our brain relearns, well, recreates synapses and all that stuff a little bit faster, and that's proven. We actually published some papers in the past on that subject, and that will add to the speed of rehabilitation. Now, going back to your question, when you are playing a game, you are thinking hard about that game. You are concentrating. You are actually focused on that game. You see that ego going right, going left, and so on and so forth, and you are thinking. And we believe that this also has a very, very important component on cognitive rehabilitation. We did not study that aspect of cognitive rehabilitation at the moment, but if we can hypothesize, the answer is yes, there must be something there. We did not go into it in depth so far because we are most worried about uh, functional control and proprioceptive control, meaning one of the sequelae that you may have after a stroke is that your brain cannot find your arm in a way.
Mhm.
You cannot identify where's your arm.
Right.
And we use that with this kind of some sensors in our body that give to our brains um, some information that allow our brain to map where is my arm, my hand right now. But
Mhm.
after the stroke, some of these people will not be able to know that the hand is over here.
Mhm.
So our systems also target to that to try and also assist in the rehabilitation of proprioception as well that may be lost during or after the stroke. But yeah, that's a beautiful question. Can we
Mhm.
also study
Mhm.
cognitive rehabilitation with this kind of thing, with this kind of technology? Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
the
No, and
hypothesis, yes, we can,
yes,
but we have
yes.
not done that as yet.
Well, hopefully that will be part of your future work. It sounds like it's a good chance it will be. So yeah.
Correct. It's in the queue.
All right. I love it. Let's talk a little bit about the technology itself, virtual reality, augmented reality, different as individuals, we react differently to each one of those modalities of immersive technology. And uh, how much of what you've seen so far gives you insight into which is better suited for certain things? Or is it a very individual thing to some degree as to
Yes.
whether a person can, because, I've seen lots of people put on headsets at Tech Grove and can stand it for about 13 seconds and then they got to yank it
Yes.
off as opposed to other people that are I can't get them out of the headset. So
Yes.
yeah.
Exactly. Yes. It's a technology issue comparing to the human performance, really, because as you just mentioned, we have seen a lot of applications on virtual reality in very, very different areas. And although you have the potential of the technology there to help different kind of applications, it comes to a personal level as well, as you just mentioned. There are some cases that people cannot stand, as you said, 2 to 3 minutes with the technology. That's why this very first tool we are not doing in an immersive environment. We are doing in a non-immersive environment. But the potential is there. I like to define with my students that a lot of them ask me what's the definition of virtual reality. I found one that I like most. We say the virtual reality is the feeling of being there. That's virtual reality. You see, it's the feeling of being there. So when I was doing the traditional sessions in a room well, are surrounded but by walls and chair and things like that, my concentration is not entirely there. But if I put somebody inside a virtual environment, I somehow switch off my environment and I focus the way I have to be in a fun way, in a productive way. Okay. But again, we need to check from one application to another application. I can give you an example. This one we working with amputees is a very, very difficult issue as well because they have to learn again. Like stroke people have to learn again, amputees have to learn again as well. Okay. And we provide this virtual reality where he can, through a headset, he can control virtual processes and I can collect the movements, the intentional movements, help him to control these prostheses. But what happens is he's sitting here and he's seeing the prosthesis over there. But in the real life, it's not going to happen. The prosthesis has to be in his arm. So that's why we are now moving to augmented reality. What we are trying to achieve here is I try to make my user to see the prosthesis attached to his body, to this remaining part. So this is more natural. So he's just gonna help in the learning process. I'm not saying that the first one is not helping. It does. We can get some information from that, some answers for that. But the other one is more natural. So I am inside an environment training in a way that what's going to really happen when the prosthesis, the real one, comes to myself. Okay, so again, is a technology issue, but we also we have to take care. We have to keep in mind that the human issue has to be confronted, and we as researcher has to find a way to provide a better way for we can converge to a solution when we can help different subjects in their different problems.
You mentioned you have some collaborations with some organizations in the U.S. Can you? I'd love for you to share who that is, and I will tell you we have in the webinar today
Sure.
some of our innovation team from the local Veterans Administration Hospital that's doing some really wonderful work in this area too. So maybe there's a collaboration there. So.
Sure. I am actually at the moment I'm working with Professor Nitesh Thakur from Johns Hopkins University. We actually have a DoD project budget over there for this research. We are dealing with fifth generation dextrose prosthesis, basically. So Johns Hopkins. This is where our main branch now, the main collaboration is being developed nowadays in the US.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, hopefully out of this webinar, we'll generate a few more connections for you. I know in Orlando, we have the Defense Health Agency simulation and training group is, I know Jude's very interested in this. So there was another,
sorry.
Sir?
No, I was saying that I know that you guys are doing some wonderful works over there. So it would be great to get in touch with.
Make these connections. That's what we do at TechGrow. So. There was another question that was submitted ahead of time that I wanted to touch on too, and it had to do with kind of the next generation workforce, if you will. I mean, your faculty members, you have students working with you in your labs and on these projects. What are you finding are the skills, both hard skills, cognitive skills, soft skills that students need to be exposed to and have a chance to learn to be prepared for a career in serious games, regardless of the application, but maybe particularly in healthcare?
Was it? Well, I would say that one of the very first that comes to my thoughts is computing programming. This is a very important skill that students, either in the undergrad or postgrad course, they have to develop. Without a very good computer skill, we can we will have very difficult problems to make everything talk together, like the hardware side, the software side, the technology side. So computer programming is something very important. When we go for the part of the graphics, because most of our application here, you have to provide the virtual environment, which you have to to have a very good skill in creating virtual environments, and that requires modeling in 3 dimension. So that's another area which is really very important. And I would finish saying, maybe Alcimar has something in his area. I would finish saying that follow the technology. Okay, if you are trying to do something with one technology, you can get some good results there, but don't stop there. See what's happening in the market. See what's happening in industry, in the academy. Can this new technology or this new uh, equipments that coming in the markets can give us a different direction? We believe so. We didn't have something with augmented reality for the, for example, prosthesis training. After we can see some very good glasses for augmented reality, we thought we can go there for training prosthesis. See, so I would resume to provide a resume saying computer programming, 3D modeling, and follow that technology. Maybe Osmar has something to add.
You did a great job there, Edgar. But I want to add a crucial skill: imagination. Be brave, be bold. This is what I ask all the time of my students. I say, think outside the box, because if you keep doing the same thing, as you all know, you're gonna get the same results all the time. This is a famous citation. So what we try to teach the students is basically come out of the box. Think differently. Well, can you think about virtual reality as something that will assist or a cognitive rehabilitation? Put your brains to work. Think different. Be bold. Do not be afraid of making mistakes. This is basically, I would say, one of the most important skills. Something that I am always after. Because in a way, programming you can learn, but imagination, well, you have to practice it really hard. Yeah.
Thank you for that. That's just such an important confidence, I would say, to instill in all of our youth we're working with, regardless of the pathway, right? You mentioned that moving into clinical trials, and Edgar, you verified or validated that there are other application maybe pursuing down the road with this approach. Can you tell us a little bit more about what's in the queue?
Yes. Well, as we presented here, we have applications for recovering patients from stroke. We're doing something people who has arms or her legs, we can work there as well. And another area we're working as well is for Parkinson disease patients. You see, they have protocols to help them to recover the movements or to better control the movements when the disease goes further. So if we start previously, and we have a neurologist in our lab, and he helping us to provide a serious game with virtual reality to help patients with Parkinson's as well. Okay, so we can provide them a kind of a very funny game where help him to control the way he does the movement. For example, this game is something to launch a ball. So we can capture the movements, we can show the movement, the neurologist or physiotherapist can follow and identify how correct or how wrong he's doing the movement and tell him, try to do this, try to do this. And then with repetition, we can help them to better control the movements. So I would say there are plenty of areas where virtual reality and also augmented reality can help. We have another work with one of the hospitals in our city where we are using also augmented reality for heart surgeries. And the idea is when one surgeon, a heart surgeon, is doing the surgery, and he has to make decisions when he's doing the surgery, and most of these decisions is related to the specific heart of the patient, some biodata of that patient, and sometimes he has to move his head or turn around to get the data to decide what to do during the heart surgery. So we are trying to bring something with augmented reality, so the doctor can use HMD, a headset, and we can bring all the information in just one environment that can help him to go through the surgery. So I would say we have a very large uh, areas or very large number of areas where we can apply this kind of technology, virtual and augmented reality. And I would agree completely with Alcimar. Explore your imagination. You're going to be very surprised what you can do.
Dr. Soares, do you have anything to add to that?
That basically Edgar covered most of our cue, but from the research side. But the next thing in line is translation. We are really now looking into partnership to translate this technology. Now we are very close to the point of getting the technology we designed inside our labs into a clinical day-to-day environment. This is what we are actually looking for. We are looking for partners, private partners, academic partners, in order to find ways of translating this technology. So where? To the patients. Where are the patients? Well, wherever they are, throughout the world. So this is one of the most important elements in our queue nowadays, translation.
Okay.
Keep working on that.
And as I had told you, I was going to ask you as we start to wind this up, what do you need, right? And I know our guests are interested in maybe how they could collaborate with you or support you in some way. So clinical sites sounds like collaborations in that regard. Certainly one thing. What else might be helpful to you?
We are looking for companies that are willing to actually getting the system into production. We are academy. We are not good in that. We are actually we let's not use bad words here, but we're really bad into
as
creating.
Universities. It's not our job, right? Yeah,
that's not my job. That's not my job. So we are looking into someone who actually wants to take this technology. Well, we can license the technology. Whatever it's necessary. We have a pretty good system here in our universities to help into the legal issues and so on. So basically, number one, clinical sites. That's pretty important, where we can have more and more patients in order to actually validate and revalidate the results that we get, and also partners in the industry in order to put this thing together into a commercial viable product. That's so much more difficult than it sounds, as you all guys know. But that's one
so
very
licensing,
licensing and all
licensing
that stuff.
partners, perhaps, as well as those
And
clinical
academic
environments.
partners as well, because this is so important.
Yeah.
As Edgar just said, the window of opportunity for this is pretty big, and we
Mm-hmm.
can find people to work with us into cognition. We were just talking about cognitions. Can we find someone
Mm-hmm.
there in the US that wants to work with us on that, on dealing with cognitive issues that can be studied, or um, we can use this kind of system in order to
Yeah.
assist rehabilitation, or even study, basic studies on that. We are actually really looking for into more and more partners.
If
Okay.
I
Well, gosh,
okay,
there's
if I
several things
may,
that come to mind. Yeah.
yeah,
Go ahead, Edgar.
yes, sorry. I just want to give an example of Alcimar just said. Today, we just have
Mm-hmm.
one robotic platform, and we have plenty and plenty of
Mm-hmm.
stroke patients. You see, we are not a company to
Mm-hmm.
fabricate, manufacture, to do the manufacturing of those platforms. So if somebody sees it's
Right.
important to have more and more of this platform, please talk to us. We can work together, and then an industry or a company can to provide other robot platforms, right? We need graphic
Okay.
industrial graphic designers because, as we heard from the doctors, after they stroke, the patient go to the hospital, they treat the patient, and he's already in the condition, in a clinical condition, to start the recovery process. Okay. But what really
Mm-hmm.
happens in essentially in third world countries, sometimes it doesn't, and there is another data. As soon as subject starts the recovery protocol, the better the opportunity to recover 100% of the movement is bigger. So we have to start very,
Mm-hmm.
very quickly after the doctors say he's okay to start the training. But we have heard that some guys start the training after 6 months leaving the hospital. Okay. And we believe,
Mm-hmm.
and we have talked to doctors and physiotherapists, that it's possible even inside the hospital, the patient could start the training, but that platform is not, that robotic
Mm-hmm.
platform maybe is not adequate for that. We need graphic designers, industrial graphics, so they can help us to provide a better way and to do this in not only inside clinics, but also inside hospitals, just in the moment the patient is okay to start.
Mm-hmm.
You see?
Mm. Yes. Yeah. No, makes so much sense. So I think what what I see is a opportunity for through Tech Grove us to connect you with a number of different entities here in the Central Florida that are modeling and simulation, immersive technology space in healthcare. We have a lot of medical simulation going on, both at Advent Health, University of Central Florida is deeply involved in healthcare simulation, and then certainly our Veterans Administration team locally and immersive work they're doing. In fact, there's an email address in the chat for you to follow up with, VA Immersive at va.gov. I would encourage you to connect with the team there. Any last words either of you would like to say before we close this out?
First of all, once more, I'd like to thank you, Carolyn. Thank you, Renee, that
Of
who help
course.
us a lot to be here today. And I always say science is not done in an isolated way. We are not islands. We need to work together.
Mhm.
So if you see we can contribute together to help people, to help patients, please contact us. We can do very good work together. Thank you once more. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carol, for inviting us. It's been a pleasure. Let's hope we can go to Central Florida and meet in person, and then we can chat and chat more. It is a wonderful opportunity. It's been a wonderful opportunity.
Will you be back at ITSEC this year?
Sorry?
Will you be back at ITSEC this year? Will you be
Yeah,
coming to
probably
ITSEC?
yes. Probably
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's talk about arranging some meetings for you around that, perhaps, if not before. But thank you so much, gentlemen. This has been fascinating. Thank you for what you're doing. It's such impactful work, changing so many lives, and just delighted to have this opportunity to showcase what you're doing and hopefully stimulate some collaborations that will just help you and so many others that are working in this healthcare space to continue to improve how we are doing rehabilitation and improving lives. With that, thank you for all of you that joined us. I hope you'll join our Tech Grove community if you're not already part of it by going to our website, filling out our contact form. Reach out and call us and email us at any time. Hope to see you at some of our events. We will not have a Tech Grove Connect webinar in June because TSIS is going on in June. So we will be back in July with our next webinar featuring another best paper from ITSEC, and that information will very soon be up on the NTSA events website. The last thing I will share with all of you is this webinar is recorded. Within about 24 to 48 hours, the recording of the webinar will also be available on the NTSA events website under past events. Hope you'll share it, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you very much. See you.